Seoul, South Korea, September 19th, 2025. The ornate setting of the Foreign Correspondents' Club in Seoul became the stage for a carefully choreographed press conference this week, as South Korea's Foreign Minister Hyun laid out his vision for the coming Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Summit. With the high-stakes gathering just weeks away, Cho emphasized both the diplomatic weight of the event and the delicate issues lingering between Seoul, Beijing, and Washington. The APEC Summit, scheduled for early November in South Korea, is already shaping up as a moment of renewed engagement on the international stage. For Seoul, the arrival of Chinese President Xi Jinping is no small matter. It marks Xi's first visit to South Korea in years and provides an opportunity for both nations to address long-standing differences and recalibrate their relationship at a time of shifting global dynamics. As Hyun entered the press hall, cameras tracked his every move. Rows of journalists, notepads in hand, waited for insight into how Seoul intends to navigate the overlapping pressures of regional diplomacy, domestic priorities, and international expectations. After brief formalities, Cho began to speak. He did not avoid the gravity of Xi Jinping's attendance at the summit, nor the expectations attached to it. His first statement underscored the symbolic and practical importance of the Chinese leader's arrival. Hyun said, "On this occasion, APEC, President Xi Jinping is visiting Korea for the first time in a long time. So Korea is also trying to make President Xi Jinping's visit a good opportunity to discuss many outstanding issues between Korea and China and develop relations between the two countries." This remark highlighted the central theme of Cho's press engagement. The summit is not merely a ceremonial gathering, but a strategic moment to realign priorities and address challenges that have long tested Seoul-Beijing relations. Tensions over trade restrictions, regional security, and diplomatic posturing have lingered between the two nations, especially in light of broader geopolitical rivalries involving the United States. Yet, Cho also made it clear that despite the differences, there is an undeniable foundation upon which both countries can build. He chose his words carefully to remind listeners of the shared aspirations between South Korea and China. Hyun said, "Above all, the common ground between South Korea and China lies in their common pursuit of peace and stability on the Korean peninsula." This statement served not only as a diplomatic anchor, but also as a subtle reminder of what remains at stake. The Korean peninsula, historically a flashpoint of tension and global concern, continues to influence the calculations of regional actors. With North Korea's unpredictable trajectory and the shifting balance of power in East Asia, Seoul's message was clear. Dialogue with Beijing is not optional, it is essential. For South Korea, the visit of President Xi is symbolic on multiple levels. Relations between Seoul and Beijing have experienced ups and downs in recent years, often marked by disagreements over defense cooperation, trade restrictions, and global alignments. The last major thaw came several years ago, when both governments tried to move past disputes related to US missile defense systems deployed in South Korea. Cho's framing of Xi's attendance as a good opportunity reflects Seoul's determination to not only manage these disagreements, but also to find ways to move forward. Diplomats in Seoul see this as a chance to show that South Korea is not simply caught between Washington and Beijing, but is actively shaping its own role in the evolving regional order. By emphasizing the common pursuit of peace and stability, Cho pointed to one of the few areas where Seoul and Beijing consistently align. Both countries share an interest in preventing escalation on the Korean peninsula, though their methods and broader strategies often diverge. For China, a stable peninsula means avoiding a crisis on its border and maintaining influence in the region. For South Korea, it means reducing the risk of military confrontation and ensuring its own security while pursuing long-term reunification goals. While much of the attention focused on the upcoming summit and China's role, Cho was also pressed on another pressing issue: the status of South Korean workers abroad, particularly in the United States. In recent weeks, concerns have grown over difficulties faced by Koreans seeking work visas in the US. Reports of delays, restrictions, and policy uncertainty have sparked debate in Seoul about the need for a new bilateral arrangement. Cho addressed these concerns directly, signaling that Seoul is preparing a proactive diplomatic approach with Washington. His remarks carried a practical, solutions-oriented tone, underscoring South Korea's determination to resolve the matter without allowing it to fester into a broader dispute. Hyun said, "In the long term, we plan to discuss quickly to resolve these issues, work visas for Koreans in the United States, through a working group, possibly by creating a new visa category, by concluding an agreement between South Korea and the United States regarding visas, or by setting up a special visa window at the US Embassy in South Korea for workers." The minister's detailed explanation reflected more than just a policy outline. It was a reassurance to South Korean citizens concerned about their opportunities abroad. For a country with deep economic and social ties to the United States, ensuring smooth access to work visas is not just a bureaucratic issue, but a matter of national interest. The suggestion of a special visa window at the US Embassy in Seoul is particularly noteworthy. Such a measure, if realized, would mark a rare and direct step toward easing the process for South Korean workers and could set a precedent for bilateral cooperation in addressing labor mobility issues. The dual emphasis on China and the United States underscored the delicate balancing act Seoul faces. On one hand, South Korea relies heavily on the US for security, defense cooperation, and a long-standing alliance. On the other, China is South Korea's largest trading partner and a critical regional player whose influence cannot be ignored. Cho's statements were careful not to tilt too heavily toward either side, instead projecting a vision of South Korea as a nation capable of advancing its own agenda through dialogue with both Washington and Beijing. The APEC Summit provides the perfect stage for such positioning. With leaders from across the Asia-Pacific gathering, Seoul has the chance to demonstrate that it is not merely a participant in global affairs, but an active shaper of outcomes. At the Foreign Correspondents' Club, Cho's remarks were met with attentive silence, punctuated only by the clicking of cameras and the hurried scribbles of journalists. The minister's tone was measured, almost understated at times, but his choice of words carried clear intent. Each reference to Xi Jinping's visit, to peace and stability, and to visa arrangements with the United States reflected the dual pressures of managing immediate concerns while keeping an eye on long-term strategy. Observers noted that Cho did not shy away from sensitive issues, but he framed them in a way that emphasized opportunity rather than conflict. His description of Xi's attendance as a good opportunity and his vision of a special visa arrangement with Washington both highlighted Seoul's preference for constructive solutions. With the APEC Summit less than 2 months away, Cho's press conference was as much about setting the stage as it was about providing concrete answers. For South Korea, the coming weeks will involve careful preparation, both in terms of diplomatic engagement and domestic messaging. The stakes are high. If Seoul succeeds in using Xi's visit to ease tensions with Beijing, it could mark a turning point in regional diplomacy. At the same time, if meaningful progress is made on visa issues with Washington, it would reinforce the depth and resilience of the US-South Korea alliance. Either way, Cho's remarks made clear that South Korea intends to use the summit not just as a host nation, but as a proactive player shaping outcomes that matter for its future. As the press conference drew to a close, Hyun left the stage with the same calm demeanor with which he had entered. Yet behind the calm words lay a clear strategy: seize the moment of Xi Jinping's visit to rebuild ties with China and address the practical concerns of South Koreans abroad through new initiatives with the United States. The message was unmistakable. South Korea, caught between two giants, is determined not to be sidelined, but to carve out its own path. In his own words, on this occasion, APEC, President Xi Jinping is visiting Korea for the first time in a long time. So Korea is also trying to make President Xi Jinping's visit a good opportunity to discuss many outstanding issues between Korea and China and develop relations between the two countries. For Seoul, November's summit is more than a diplomatic gathering. It is a test of its ability to navigate complex alliances, manage sensitive issues, and assert itself as a nation that can engage both Washington and Beijing on its own terms.
안녕하세요, 여러분. 반갑습니다. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Foreign Minister Hyun.
네, 여러분.
TV 김지영 기자라고 합니다. 아까 모두 말씀에서 시진핑 주석께서 에이펙 회기에 방한을 예상하신다라고 말씀을 하셨는데요. 만약 시 주석께서 방한을 하신다면 한중 관계와 또 말씀 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
조사된 내용이 있는지 확인된 내용이 있는지 어떻게 조사되고 있는지 하고요. 지금 한미 간의
Korea is a state party to the Rome Statute. I was wondering if the South.
In your first few months as foreign minister, what have you learned about dealing with?
한국 기업들을 더 많이 지원하거나 돈을 내는 거 바람직하다고 생각하십니다.
What is the level of concern of South Korea regarding these planned tariffs, considering that it's the main trade partner in Latin America and that we have major investments? Thank you.
That's the wrap up of our session today. Thank you all for joining here today.
On this occasion, APEC, President Xi Jinping is visiting Korea for the first time in a long time. So Korea is also trying to make President Xi Jinping's visit a good opportunity to discuss many outstanding issues between Korea and China and develop relations between the two countries.
시진핑 주석의 방안을 좋은 계기로 만들려고 하고 있습니다.
Above all, the common ground between South Korea and China lies in their common pursuit of peace and stability on the Korean peninsula.
도모한다는데 상호 접점이 있습니다.
In the long term, we plan to discuss quickly to resolve these issues, work visas for Koreans in the United States, through a working group, possibly by creating a new visa category, by concluding an agreement between South Korea and the United States regarding visas, or by setting up a special visa window at the US Embassy in South Korea for workers.
기업인 비자 특별 데스크를 만든다든지 이런 것들을 워킹 그룹을 통해서 신속하게 협의해